For clarification, Marcus leaned forward, his voice dripping with arrogance. We wanted to tell you now, so there's no confusion later. Everything belongs to us. My brother's words hit me like a punch to the stomach. Suddenly, the home-cooked meal that Mom had promised would make the evening special felt heavy in my stomach. For a brief moment, the room fell into a tense silence, with only the distant hum of traffic outside breaking the quiet. My heart raced as I locked eyes with Marcus and Ava, my younger twin siblings. They were both smirking now, their expressions gleaming with self-satisfaction. "Excuse me?" I asked, my voice shaking despite my attempt to stay calm. "What do you mean? Everything?" "Exactly what Marcus said, Ellie," my mom snapped, her smile gone, replaced with a stern set of her lips. "Your dad and I have decided to finalize our will, and we wanted you to hear it directly from us. The house, the cabin by the lake, all of it is going to Marcus and Ava." I turned to my dad, hoping for a hint of hesitation, maybe a sign that this was some cruel joke, but he didn't even look up. His gaze was fixed on his plate, avoiding my eyes entirely. "Before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below, letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. We're excited to connect with all of you, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more amazing content. Now back to the story." The silence stretched on until he finally spoke, his voice soft and controlled. "Ellie, you have to understand our reasoning," he said, folding his hands slowly. "You've done incredibly well for yourself. We're proud of your career and the success you've built. Marcus and Ava, well, they still need a lot of support. They're still trying to figure things out." I blinked hard, trying to hold back tears. "Support?" I asked. For years, I had been quietly taking on the family's financial burdens, thinking it was my duty as the oldest child. I had covered everything: the mortgage payments, Marcus's ever-increasing tuition fees, and Ava's costly hobbies. But none of that seemed to matter. A bitter feeling twisted in my chest as I glanced at my parents, their faces cold and resolute. This wasn't just unfair. It was a betrayal. "So, after all these years of helping out, this is my reward?" I asked, my voice trembling but steady. "For paying the bills, covering tuition, even fixing up that cabin last summer, you're leaving me with nothing because I've managed to succeed on my own?" My mom sighed dramatically, shaking her head. "This is exactly why we didn't want to tell you, Ellie. You always bring it back to money. It's never about family with you." Heat surged in my face, and I clenched my fists under the table. "It's always been about family for me," I snapped back. "Every sacrifice I've made for the family. Because you asked me to. Because you said family sticks together." Marcus scoffed, leaning back in his chair and crossing his arms smugly. "You're acting like a martyr. No one forced you to do anything. You liked playing the hero." Ava laughed softly, twirling a strand of her shiny hair around her finger. "Yeah, if you weren't so busy trying to save the family, you might actually have a life of your own by now." Humiliation burned through me, the sting sharp and bitter. Aunt Claire, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. Her silence, though, felt louder than any words could have been. My parents remained unmoved, their eyes cast downward, avoiding the confrontation. I stood up abruptly, the legs of my chair scraping harshly against the floor. "You know what? You're right," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. "I've been a fool to believe I mattered here. I won't make that mistake again." As I reached for my coat, I could hear them calling after me, but I didn't turn back. With a decisive step, I left the room, and the door slammed shut behind me, cutting off the voices inside. Outside, the cool air of the city hit me sharply, but the raw ache in my chest didn't fade. My family had turned their backs on me, discarded me like I was nothing. I climbed into my car, slamming the door shut, my hands trembling as I gripped the steering wheel. The tears finally came, streaming down my face as I drove in silence, unable to believe the betrayal I had just endured. Ava's voice cut through the silence like a knife, her words dripping with cruel amusement. "Maybe you thought that if you helped enough, Mom and Dad would finally love you as much as they love us." Her words stung more than I wanted to admit, opening a wound I had tried so hard to close. My stomach twisted painfully as I fought to hold back the rush of emotions that were threatening to break free. How could they be so callous, so entitled? I had given everything for this family, sacrificed my own time, energy, and resources. And this was the reward I got? It wasn't just about the money. It was the complete disregard for everything I had done for them. Mom and Dad remained silent, not reprimanding Ava, not even giving me a glance of reassurance. Their silence was the loudest statement they could have made. I had always been the one to hold the family together, to ensure they never went without, to cover their debts when things got tight. But now I was being made out to be the villain. They had twisted everything around. I could feel the anger growing inside me. It was like a flame that threatened to consume me. I had kept quiet for years, silently taking on the burdens they placed on me, thinking I was doing it out of love. But now I saw it clearly. They had used me. They had expected me to be the bank, the backup plan, and when I couldn't take it anymore, they turned on me. "Well, you're right," I said finally, my voice steady even though every part of me was shaking with rage. "Nobody forced me, but I'm done now. I'm done being your ATM, done being the one you turn to when you need money to fix your problems. I've spent years putting all of you first, but I'm not doing it anymore." I pushed my chair back and stood up, ignoring the looks of shock on their faces. For a second, the smell of the food we had been eating lingered in the air, but it was no longer comforting. It was a reminder of everything I had hoped for in that moment. A peaceful family dinner that ended with love and understanding. But instead, I had been blindsided by the betrayal that lay bare before me. Ignoring the voices calling my name, I grabbed my coat from the hallway and made my way toward the door. When I stepped outside, I let the cool evening air wash over me, though it didn't ease the tightness in my chest. It felt as though I was walking away from everything I had known. My family, my childhood home, the very idea of what I thought we were. I walked to my car, my hands trembling as I fumbled with the door handle. I slammed the door shut, the sound echoing through the empty street as I sat in silence, trying to wrap my mind around what had just happened. The tears came then, flowing freely as I started the engine. There was no turning back now. This was the end of something that had once meant everything to me. The drive home was a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about everything I had done for them. How I had quietly taken on their financial burdens, paid for everything, even fixed up the family cottage when it needed repairs. Yet none of that seemed to matter. They had never once acknowledged what I had done, never once showed any appreciation. Now, it was all clear. I pulled into my parking spot and sat in my car for a moment before stepping out. The apartment that had once felt like a refuge now seemed distant, strange. I had always thought of it as my sanctuary, but tonight it felt like a cage. I needed to make sure I wouldn't let myself be trapped by them again. I walked inside and poured myself a glass of wine, something I'd been saving for a special occasion, though now it felt like I was drinking to numb the pain. I opened my banking app and saw the monthly payments. $1,500 for the mortgage, $600 for the utility bills, and more money going out for their needs. I had covered all of it. I had kept them afloat for years, but now, for the first time, I felt no obligation to continue. Without hesitation, I canceled the payments. My fingers hovered over the screen for a moment, then clicked confirm. There was no guilt this time, just a quiet sense of relief, as if the chains that had held me in place for so long had finally loosened. The voicemail notification on my phone blinked persistently, urging me to listen. I hesitated for a moment, but finally I pressed play. "Ellie, please stop being so dramatic." My mother's voice came through, filled with her usual mix of exasperation and guilt. "Call me back. You know that family doesn't treat each other like this." A hollow laugh escaped me. The irony was not lost on me. Family. The word that had been used so often to manipulate me, to make me feel obligated to give without question. But now, hearing her say it, I realized that family had always been about what they needed from me, not what I needed from them. I deleted the message and set my phone down, trying to shake off the weight of her words. No more. I wouldn't let her guilt trip me into returning to their demands. In the days that followed, the calls didn't stop. First, my mom, then my dad. Then Marcus and Ava, alternating between demanding explanations, accusing me of abandoning them, and trying to guilt me into feeling like the villain. Not once did I hear a hint of remorse or regret in their voices, just frustration that I had finally stopped being the family's financial lifeline. I felt no obligation to pick up anymore, so I silenced the phone. The peace that came from doing so was short-lived. A nagging ache settled in my chest. Was I really doing the right thing? Had I been wrong to finally stand up for myself? Was I too harsh, too quick to sever the ties? I needed a distraction. So I buried myself in work. I focused on my job more than ever, diving into project or project. My latest assignment was a massive office building in the city that required constant attention. The long days, the client meetings, the endless blueprints, it all kept my mind occupied, even if only for a little while. Weeks passed, and I began to think that maybe, just maybe, my family had accepted my decision. They had given up trying to call. There had been no more angry messages or desperate pleas. I started to hope they had let it go, but deep down I knew better. It was only a matter of time. And then, the text came. It was from Ava. A short, bitter message. "Family meeting tonight. Ellie, you owe it to us to be there." My heart skipped a beat. It was as if the weight of the world had dropped back into my lap. I didn't owe them anything anymore. But curiosity got the better of me. A part of me hoped for some kind of reconciliation, though I knew it was foolish. With a deep breath, I typed a single word in response. "Fine." When I pulled into their driveway that evening, everything felt wrong. The same old cars were parked in the driveway, but now they seemed like symbols of entitlement. I could feel the dread settling in my stomach as I approached the front door. Mom opened it with a forced smile. "Glad you came," she said stiffly, ushering me inside. Aunt Claire was sitting in the living room, her eyes full of sympathy but reluctant to speak. My heart raced as I sat down across from her, waiting for the inevitable confrontation. "We called this meeting to clear the air," Dad began, his voice stiff. "Ellie, we thought by now you would have seen reason. Clearly, we were wrong." The atmosphere was thick with tension as Dad's voice broke through the silence. "Ellie, your mother and I have thought long and hard about this, and we really believed you'd understand our position by now. Clearly, we were wrong." His words sent a sharp pang through me, the weight of everything crashing down all at once. "Understand?" I repeated, disbelief rising in my voice. "You cut me out completely. After everything I've done, helping you pay for the house, covering Marcus's tuition, even fixing the cabin last summer, you leave me with nothing and expect me to understand?" Mom sighed, exasperation creeping into her tone. "It's not about money, Ellie. It never was. You've done your part, yes, but it's not about keeping score. We have to think about Marcus and Ava. They need stability. You've already built your life. They still need our help." The words stung harder than I expected. Stability? I'd given them stability for years, quietly paying for everything, taking care of the financial mess they never seemed to manage. I had been the one sacrificing, believing it was my duty, and now they were telling me it didn't count. Marcus scoffed from his seat at the table, a smug look on his face. "Ellie, you're acting like we asked you to play the hero. No one twisted your arm. You just liked the role." Ava, leaning casually against the wall, added, "Yeah, maybe if you weren't so busy being the family savior, you'd actually have a life." The words hit harder than I wanted to admit. For years, I had put my life on hold to support them, thinking it was what family did. But now I realized how easily they had taken me for granted. It wasn't love or care they wanted from me, it was money. I stood up abruptly, the anger swelling inside me, threatening to spill over. "You know what?" I said, my voice calm but firm. "You're right. I've spent years making sacrifices, and you've never once acknowledged them. You've always expected me to keep giving without ever asking if I needed anything in return." I turned to leave, feeling a strange mix of rage and relief. As I grabbed my coat, the scent of the meal we had shared lingered in the air, but it no longer mattered. That comfort had been shattered long ago. The door slammed behind me as I walked outside, feeling the weight of their betrayal settle in. The night air hit my face, but it didn't help clear the fog in my mind. I had spent my whole life trying to earn their love, their approval, and this was what I got in return. I climbed into my car, tears welling in my eyes. The drive home was a blur. I couldn't believe it. The family I had sacrificed everything for had turned their backs on me. When I pulled into my parking spot, I sat there for a moment, staring at the apartment that had once been my sanctuary. Now it felt more like a prison. Inside, I opened my banking app, and there they were, payments I had been making for years. Mortgages, bills, tuition fees, all of it. I had carried the weight of their financial burdens, thinking it was part of being a family. But now, for the first time, I realized it was never about family at all. It was about control. Without hesitation, I canceled the payments. A wave of relief washed over me. For the first time in years, I was no longer their financial crutch. As the clock ticked well past midnight, I sat in front of my computer, my mind racing. I knew I needed to do something, anything to make this all feel real, to prove to myself I wasn't crazy for standing up for my boundaries. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as my thoughts spiraled. Then a sudden realization struck: the hallway security camera. I quickly pulled up the footage, my heart pounding as I skimmed through it. There, in the grainy video, was Marcus. Unmistakably him, his baseball cap pulled low, trying to hide his identity. But there was no mistaking the malicious joy on his face as he walked up to my door. With methodical precision, he began to spray foam around the frame, completely blocking it. The anger I'd been suppressing burst through me. This wasn't just a petty act, it was calculated. It wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about trying to take something away from me. His satisfaction in ruining my personal space made my blood boil. I had worked so hard for everything I had, and this was how he repaid me? With shaking hands, I saved the video, the weight of what I had just seen hitting me hard. The choice was clear. I had to take action. But then doubt crept in. Was it too extreme? Could I really take this to the authorities? But I quickly dismissed those thoughts. This was no longer a family argument. This was vandalism, and he had crossed the line. I needed advice. Without a second thought, I called Aunt Claire. She always knew how to put things into perspective, and I needed that clarity now. "Ellie, you can't let him get away with this," Aunt Claire said firmly. "He needs to face the consequences of his actions. If you don't hold him accountable now, it'll just keep happening." Her words struck a chord with me. It was time for the truth to be faced. I filed a police report the next morning, providing the video as evidence. The reaction from my family was explosive. My phone was bombarded with voicemails, each one more furious than the last. They called me heartless, vindictive, and a traitor. But beneath their anger was something else: fear. They could see now that I was serious, that I wasn't going to back down no matter what they said. It wasn't long before Dad called, his voice shaky, trying to keep his composure. "What will it take, Ellie, to make this go away?" $33,000, I replied, my voice steady. "The exact amount to fix the door and the damage Marcus caused." "That's extortion," Dad shouted. "No," I answered, cold and calm. "It's the cost of his actions. He either pays for it, or he faces the legal consequences. His choice." He hung up, clearly furious. The following day, the money was transferred to my account, $33,000, marked as final payment. I didn't feel triumphant, but I did feel something I hadn't in a long time: relief. For once, my actions had consequences for them, and for once, I had forced them to acknowledge it. Marcus's small act of destruction hadn't broken me. It had set me free. A wave of guilt washed over me as I replayed the conversation with my parents in my mind. Had I truly destroyed my family by refusing to accept their treatment? Had I been too harsh, too quick to cut ties? But even as the guilt gnawed at me, there was a part of me that stood firm. I wasn't the one who had torn us apart. They had made that choice long before I walked away. Then, a knock at my door broke me out of my thoughts. It was Aunt Claire, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee, a gentle smile on her face. She stepped inside without saying a word and enveloped me in a tight hug, offering the kind of comfort I had longed for. "I'm so proud of you, Ellie," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You deserve every bit of happiness that's coming your way." Her words lifted a weight off my chest that I didn't even realize I was carrying. Over the past few weeks, I had been struggling with the silence from my family, wondering if I had made the right decision. But now, sitting with Aunt Claire, I realized that the silence wasn't mine to carry. It was theirs. "They're still blaming you," Aunt Claire continued softly. "Your parents aren't going to change. But you found your strength. You've chosen yourself." I nodded, taking her words to heart. For so long I had been silent, afraid to rock the boat or hurt anyone's feelings. But now, I saw that I had been allowing them to define me, to control my every decision. I was no longer willing to do that. It was time to take back control of my own life. A few days later, I received a text from Ava, short and biting. "Thanks a lot. Everyone hates us now. Hope you're proud." I stared at the message, my emotions completely detached. I had spent years trying to earn their approval, constantly bending over backward to make them happy. But now, I realized their approval had never been genuine. It had always come with strings attached, and I had been too afraid to see it. I typed a simple response, my fingers steady as I pressed the keys. "I'm done apologizing for your choices. Maybe now you'll learn some responsibility." I hit send and set my phone down, feeling a small sense of closure. Over the next few weeks, life began to settle. The harsh words from distant relatives eventually faded, and my parents, without my financial support, were forced to face the consequences of their choices. Marcus continued to make reckless decisions, and Ava remained angry and resistant to change. But for me, the quiet rebellion I had started was beginning to pay off. My life was no longer defined by my family's demands. I had reclaimed my independence. I earned a promotion at work, one that came with a corner office and a salary that I had once only dreamed of. With my newfound financial freedom, I booked the trip I had been putting off for years, 2 weeks in Italy. Standing on a balcony in Florence, watching the sun dip below the skyline, I felt a sense of liberation wash over me. I was finally free from the burden of guilt and obligation. Back home, I joined a hiking group, something I had always wanted to do, but had never had the time for. One day, I met Alex, who quickly became a steady source of support. His kindness and encouragement filled the void my family had left, reminding me that I was worthy of love and respect without conditions. As the months went by, the silence from my family continued, and though the pain of their absence never fully went away, I knew one thing for sure: I had made the right choice.